First, get stuck into the state of the Russian economy right now, and a good place to start with that is looking at GDP. So what has been waging a war and being on the receiving end of international sanctions done to Russia's growth? Well, according to the government statistics agency in Russia, Rosstat, the economy contracted by just 2.1% last year. That is far better than predicted, with the World Bank back in April projecting an 11% loss for the year. Then looking ahead, the International Monetary Fund expects the Russian economy to grow this year, actually, albeit by just 0.3%.
Russia has been in a big war for over a year now. They actually invaded and took control of parts of Ukraine, but they're facing some serious resistance and getting a lot of heat from other countries for it. The West has even slapped them with some crazy sanctions, which are really hurting their money making from energy and cutting them off from the global market. These sanctions are like punishments, and they're aimed at different things Russia has done, like getting involved in Ukraine, messing with election in other countries, using chemical weapons, launching cyberattacks, and violating human rights. It's a whole laundry list. These sanctions have really hit Russia. They've messed up their economy, affecting things like trade, investment, growth, inflation, exchange rates, public finances, and their ability to do business with other countries. But were all these enough to break their economy? Not really. Russia hasn't completely fallen apart. They've actually shown some toughness in dealing with these sanctions. They've got a big and diverse economy, lots of natural resources, enough money saved up, smart money policies, a plan to make their own goods instead of buying them from other countries, and they're even trying to find new markets to trade with. Russia is a pretty big player in the global economy. In 2022, their GDP was still $1.7 trillion. That makes them the 8th biggest economy in the world if we look at how much money they officially make, and the 6th biggest if we consider how much their money can buy. Impressive, right? But that's not the full story. Well, these sanctions have messed up Russia's trading game too, especially with the European Union, EU, which is like their top trading buddy, because around 40% of Russia's stuff that goes in and out of the country is with the EU. These sanctions have put a damper on Russia's exports. They made it harder for them to sell stuff like oil, gas, metals, machines, chemicals, and even yummy agricultural products to the EU and other countries. On the flip side, they're also finding it tough to bring in machinery, equipment, vehicles, medicines, food, and cool stuff from the EU and other places. In the first quarter of 2023, their energy cash flow took a big hit. It slumped a whopping 50%. How did that happen? Well, a group of important countries called the G7 put a cap on the price of crude oil that's shipped across the sea. And on top of that, Asian buyers were looking for bargains, so they weren't paying as much either. Now let's talk numbers. Russia's federal budget, which is like their big money plan, showed a deficit of 3.4 trillion rubles in the first 4 months of 2023. That's a huge gap between what they earned and what they spent. To put in perspective, the previous year they actually had a surplus, extra money, of 1.2 trillion rubles during the same time period. Talk about a turnaround. This deficit is actually 17% higher than what the government had planned for the whole of 2023. They were expecting a 2.9 trillion ruble deficit, but it's already gone above the mark. It's like when you aim for one target but end up overshooting it. Russia's economy took a hit. Not just a small bump, it actually shrank by 4% in the third quarter of 2022. So what caused this downturn? Well, we can blame those pesky sanctions and the fact that the Kremlin called 300,000 reservists. It's like a double whammy of trouble for the economy. And what about the big guy, inflation? Inflation has been going through the roof in Russia. It's been creeping up all throughout 2022, reaching 11.77% in January 2023. Wow, that's some serious price hopping. What's behind this inflation frenzy, you ask? Well, it's a combination of factors. There's high demand, prices of commodities are going up, and supply bottlenecks are messing things up. It's like a perfect storm of economic challenges. So yeah, Russia's been going through some tough times. The economy's taking a hit and prices are skyrocketing. It's a roller coaster ride they're on. So Russia is facing some serious financial challenges with these energy revenue drops and budget deficits. How have they been handling things, and what's the state of Russia's economy now? Russia has this pretty hefty piggy bank called the National Wealth Fund, NWF. It's like their savings account, and by April 2023, it had grown to $220 billion. How did they get all that cash? Well, their oil and gas sales brought in a ton of money, and their central bank also did some fancy currency trading for the government. Now, this NWF isn't just for show. It's actually a smart move by Russia. It acts as a safety net, a backup plan. If they ever run into money problems or need to fund important projects, they can dip into this fund. It's like having an emergency stash of cash. Oh, and in November 2022, Russia raised a jaw-dropping $13.6 billion in debt. It was the biggest amount of money they had ever borrowed on a single day. And you know what they used it for? To keep their defense spending going strong. Talk about investing in protection, right? They also have a trustworthy central bank. They're like the money wizards of the country. First, they follow a flexible exchange rate system. It's like a rubber band for their currency, the ruble. They let it go up and down based on how the market behaves. This helps keep things stable and prevents any crazy swings. They're also about targeting inflation. It's like their arch nemesis, and they're determined to keep it under control. The central bank takes action to make sure prices don't go through the roof and things stay affordable. But wait, there's more. The central bank also takes care of the banking sector. They've got these macro-prudential measures in place to make sure banks stay strong and secure. And when banks get hit by those pesky sanctions, the central bank swoops in with liquidity support. It's like being the superhero of the banking world. Here's another thing Russia is doing to handle the effects of the sanction. They're playing a clever game of reducing their reliance on foreign goods and services and boosting their own homegrown goods and services. It's like a cool strategy they call import substitution. Basically, they're all about supporting their own industries in key areas like agriculture, industry, defense, and technology. They want to be less dependent on other countries for their needs, you know? And here's the twist. They've been shaking things up in the trade department too. Russia's gone and diversified its trade partners. Instead of putting all their eggs in one basket, they're exporting more stuff to China, India, Turkey, Brazil, and other emerging markets. Why? Well, these markets are either less affected by the pesky sanctions or actually supportive of Russia. Sneaky move, right? So Russia's got their eye on the prize. They're pushing for self-sufficiency, boosting their own industries, and exploring new trade horizons. It's a bold and interesting play for sure. All of these have made them less affected by the sanctions. Now, let's talk about the money side of Russia's war and how they're dealing with the whole funding situation. How much did Russia spend on the war? When we talk about the cost of war, it's not just about money. There are so many other things that come into play. We're talking about equipment getting destroyed, people getting hurt or worse, infrastructure getting messed up, and even the whole economy and society taking a hit. It's crazy, right? Now, experts have done some math, and they think that Russia is spending over $20 billion every single day on this war. Whoa, that's a mind-boggling amount. This includes stuff like making sure everything runs smoothly, paying the soldiers, launching missiles, and even just losses they've suffered in the first 4 days alone, which are around $7 billion. Can you imagine what they could do with all that money if they weren't fighting a war? It's definitely something to think about. There's this study that says Russia has been dishing out a whopping $15.5 million every single hour since the war started. Can you believe that? It's like they're burning through cash like there's no tomorrow. And you know what's even crazier? Because of all this war spending, Russia had to tighten its belt in other areas. They've had to slash funding for important stuff like health, education, roads, and even research and development. Talk about priorities, right? Now, will Russia be able to fund the war in the future? Considering the increasing sanctions, Russia has been going all out with its military campaign in Ukraine, and they are spending a boatload of cash on it. According to recent reports, Russia's defense budget for 2023 is a staggering $84 billion. Hold up, that's over 40% higher than their original budget plan back in 2021. They're not holding back, that's for sure. But they didn't stop there. They're planning to drop nearly a third of this year's budget on defense and security alone. We're talking a jaw-dropping 9.4 trillion rubles, which roughly translates to a mind-boggling $155 billion. That's a whole lot of zeros. And they're not just splurging on military stuff, they're also pumping up their domestic security budget by 50%. They've got their investigative committee, the prosecutor's office, the prison service, and the National Guard, all revved up and deployed in Ukraine. So yeah, Russia means business. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. Russia's finances may be a total mess, but guess what? They've still got enough dough to keep that war machine rolling for a good while. So don't expect this war to fizzle out anytime soon, because Russia's got some tricks up its sleeve when it comes to keeping the war machine chugging along. Let's know what you think in the comment section. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date on the latest news about what's happening in the world today. Thanks for watching.